Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Somebody Like You podcast, where I am super excited to have Jeannette Folan on our podcast today. A bit about Jeannette from my perspective. I'm currently studying at the Nickerson Institute of Integrative Health to get certified in being an integrative mental health coach, and that is how I was introduced to Jeannette. And we were on a Zoom call, and we could have probably talked for about 6 hours about all of the things that we were feeling, our missions, our purpose. So when she reached out to me and be like, "Hey, I want to talk about some things. Do you have room and space to chat?" I was ecstatic to be able to chat with you. So Jeannette, I want to open the floor to you to kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and we're going to get this conversation going.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ben. That first conversation we had was quite electrifying. There were sparks flying all over the place. We met through the Nickerson Institute program. As you said, I'm the program director there. I'm a graduate of the coaching program. So after getting my certificate, I realized that I wanted to specialize in highly sensitive people because it was just a few years before I took the training program that I discovered I am a highly sensitive person, and the even next layer beyond that, an empath. And so I knew I needed some help, and I started exploring things and found Dr. Nickerson's program and thought, okay, great first step. Let's get some coaching experience. And of course, as you know and are probably discovering as you go along through the program, you do a lot of healing on your own, you know, right? You think that you have unpacked everything you needed to unpack before going into, oh, that's why I'm going to be a coach, because I got this all figured out, right? I can go help other people. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, you find yourself bawling at the end of every module. Oh, I didn't realize that. So it's a pretty powerful program. And I learned so much more about myself, and which of course only makes you more equipped to be able to help other people and hold a space and be present and offer the gentle guidance that people need to discover that same capacity in themselves. So what a wonderful process that's been. I'm so glad that you're going through that. But what really intrigued me is I don't get to meet too many highly sensitive men.
Hello.
So when you said, "Oh yeah, I'm highly sensitive," and started, conveying some of the challenges and gifts in that, I thought we've got to have a talk. Yeah.
And it is because, especially like between the masculine energy, the feminine energy, there is a stigma that goes around with being labeled, right, a highly sensitive male or anything like that. And once you kind of take the somatics out of it, the verbiage out of it, you realize it's just you're very in tune with energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy you surround yourself with, which could be people, it can be objects, it can be things, it can be music, whatever it might be. And mine came from, I like to say, I was able to begin tuning in out of a mode of survival at a young age. Kids these days, school bullying is just huge. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly not playing victim, because I think everyone goes through a version of that in their life. It's just, what do you take from it? And I took that. I learned how to survive in situations of not feeling like I was either going to get beat up, get emotionally, mentally just abused. And
Mm-hmm.
what I learned to do is be that chameleon. And I think when you're talking about highly sensitive people, you learn to walk into rooms and just kind of hear the conversations that aren't being had. And all of a sudden you feel like, for my story was, I learned how to manipulate that to be liked, just to be, whether the center of attention, to be viewed in a positive light. And after years and years and years and years of that, I got so far away from who I was and
Aha.
my journey.
Okay, that's the thing. How do you, so even now, you don't just get to turn off that sensitivity, and nor would I want to, although sometimes, yeah, I do crawl under a rock and I have to. But even while I'm under that rock, how do I know who I am? Ben, at what point do you say, this is who I am and this is who you are, and to be able to make that separation?
The, this is going to be, I'm getting those chills we are talking about. Part of that not knowing is the part of who I am. I'm fluid. I'm constantly evolving, changing, and what I'm learning is to be aware of that highly sensitive person. Like that is me. So when I feel my energy being pulled somewhere, I just become aware of it. And so I'm not judging myself for how I'm feeling anymore. I'm not judging myself for who likes me, who doesn't like me. I'm learning to just be aware of what is happening. And I am the awareness of what is happening. I am not the things that are happening around
Oh,
me.
okay. That was extremely well put. We have definitely walked the same footprints along that part of the path, because I went through phases. Um, of course, I could go all the way back to being a young girl where I lived in a room with my sister, 4 years older than me, which at the age of 4 and 8, it's a big difference. At the age of 8 and 12, it's a huge difference. 12 and 16, I mean, now we're really close, but back then, there was just such a big difference in where we were in our life. And she was, larger than life. She's an actress. She's a singer. She loves high energy and drama. And I was the kid always hiding under my bed, with the little flashlight in the book, right? And at one point, I remember I was underneath the bed. I was waiting for her to come home, and I didn't know how to feel. I was waiting until she got home to determine how I was meant to feel that day. And then I carried that on through every relationship, even the romantic relationships and friendships. I just kind of status quo, neutral, neutral. And then whatever you felt, okay, I need to then, react to
Ooh.
that. I think my therapist back in my late teens, 20s said codependency. And but it's not codependency. He's a highly sensitive person. It really isn't. It's I don't know. They should come up with another name for it. But fast forward then, and I had to start asking. It was when so I should say that after the coaching program was over, and I knew that I wanted to focus on highly sensitive people and especially spiritual development, I went back and approached Dr. Nickerson and said, I want to develop a training program for highly sensitive people who are mental health professionals. No, mental health professionals who are helping highly sensitive people. Because when I went to a therapist, and I actually started calling around several of them here in my area, nobody had any training on HSPs. And I know that we need a completely different approach, right, to coaching or to therapy. And so we developed the program. It's there, of course, on the Nickerson Institute website. And one of the things that I really got out of that 1 year of focusing on developing the program is I got to microscopically look at my life and see it through the lens of a highly sensitive person for the first time ever. That was the most valuable year I think that I've could given myself. And a big part about that program and about my own development was my identity. So who am I without all of you? Who am I without all of you? And the answer I came up with at the time that I was working on the program was nobody. I'm nobody without all of you. And that put me in a weeks of depression. I was feeling so horrible. And then I came out of that. Okay. You never think you're going to come out of it. You think this is like the last thing that there ever is. And then you come out of that. And I realized, oh, no. I'm not nobody without you. I am all of you. I am all of you. And instead of trying to separate myself from you, to claim my space, to claim this, no, I can just broaden my space to include all of this. And that's okay too. That was then really overwhelming. And I was on a bit of a high for a while, kind of feeling everybody's vibes and feeling bigger than myself, bigger than life. But it was that, yeah, I mean, I think I'm still actually kind of stuck on going through those cycles over and over again of identity, especially, and tell me if you feel this way, Ben, when you suddenly find yourself not feeling well or having cycles of bad thoughts, and you think, is this me? who was I hanging around? And then you almost want to start, scrutinizing all the people in your life and let's face it, judging them, for, hey, you're not allowed to feel bad because then I feel bad.
That is, you mentioned it. It's, for me, I've done a pretty good job at August 1st at 11:11 on my side. There's all these, I like to notice the synchronicities, right? Because this conversation is happening. And then it's what I'm consuming, whether that be conversations, whether that be, we have the internet now, what I'm seeing on the internet, what I'm creating myself, what I'm surrounding myself with. And that's just not people, that's spaces, that's conversations, that's content, that's books, that's anything, podcast. And what I learned is it's okay to adapt things from those places and feel those places, but also be very aware when you're feeling that moment of sadness, those depressed moods, those feelings like, you're on the bottom of the roller coaster and you're not coming up yet. And I ask myself one question all the time, and I say this in every coaching call I ever have. It's, what are we learning from this right now? And because when I ask myself that, I stop myself in my tracks from going down, we'll call it that victim mindset of this is happening to me. I say, well, what am I learning? Well, I'm learning that I'm surrounding myself by things that are making and aiding me in these feelings. So while they're not maybe at my core being, I am responsible for the things I'm surrounding myself and the content I'm surrounding myself with. So my role here is, okay, it's okay to feel this way. But what I can do is start focusing and pivoting towards the stuff of that refills my tank, the people that refill my tank. Maybe I got to call my mom. Maybe I got to go visit my grandmother, spend a little bit more quality time with my fiance, go walk the dog with her, like those kind of things, because I'll guarantee you, if I look back, I was not doing those things when I was having those feelings. So that's where we become that awareness, right? It becomes, okay, well, now I'm just going to become aware without judgment of why I'm feeling this way. And it's okay to feel this way because I've gotten really good at kind of discovering not specifics of why, but I've gotten really good at understanding the energy of it, right? I don't need to say this is on 2/22 on Monday, the 14th, I was surrounding myself with this. It's no, let's take a macro view of this. What have I been as a whole doing for the past week? And then when I look at that, I'm like, I was probably eating a lot of sweets. I was probably eating out a lot. I was probably doing all these things. And you're like, well, no wonder why I'm having so much anxiety. And I'm guilting myself into doing all these guilty pleasures because I think they make me feel better, but they don't.
Right. Yeah, that's just the old coping mechanisms that no longer work. Once you start to wake up, you realize, no. I mean, the whole awakening process, I've had to eliminate all kinds of, caffeine and then chocolate. Oh my gosh, I used to have an ounce of chocolate every single night. Had to eliminate that. Had to, cut down. I never really was a sugar person, but now I'm really not a sugar person. I've dropped like 50% of carbs, and my body is thanking me. That's jumping the subject a little bit. Go back to your anxiety and if you're having those anxious feelings. So how do you tell the difference between them being your anxious feelings and let's put anxious feelings in one bucket and let's just put overwhelmed by the sensory information around us, right? So we're just overstimulated, a completely separate bucket, because to me, overstimulated is something that's happening in the moment. Anxiety is a worry about the future. And anxiety is a trepidation, an on guardness, right? Towards something that might be coming but hasn't happened yet. And then of those buckets, are they yours or are they somebody else's? How do you determine that? Because that's, again, to me, the identity thing. Right. Of course, is this mine? And if it is mine, then I kind of get judgy about myself for feeling that way. See, you shouldn't have gone to that violent movie, Jeannette, or whatever. Right. And then, but if it isn't mine, then I feel compassion for having, being in the position where I have taken on some of the world's energy. Go.
So my anxiety and my panic disorder are very closely related. I don't realize my anxiety or the anxious feelings are there until
Mm.
it's almost like the panic is setting in. And so that fear of the future, right? It's catastrophic thinking for me. Once my anxiety gets to the point, because I'm always thinking, right? I'm always thinking about I should be creating this, I should be helping these people, I should be doing this, all, and I'm okay with those thoughts because I also like to be goal oriented as long as they're a part of my purpose. And I feel like I'm the one constructing a direction, but be present. My problem is, I should say, the thing I'm working through is my panic disorder will get very, very intense, and I instantly think it's the end. And so once I start having that thought, it's almost kind of like once I start thinking I'm dying, because that's what it is.
Mhm.
It's not that feeling of like, oh, my heart's really racing. It does. There's no walk up to this feeling.
Mm.
It's I have that heart that, or that beat that skips, and I go, here it is. This is the moment. This is everything I've ever experienced. This is my panic attack. This is when all my limbs go numb. This is when I can't think, I can't speak. I feel like I'm having this, I'm having that. I'm going to need to go to the ER. You know how the thoughts go. And
Yes.
all of a sudden it's right there. Without having those thoughts, you're having all of them at once. Your mind's all of a sudden taking every movie you've ever seen, every thought you've ever had, every conversations you've ever had, and it just like throws this painting onto your brain or into your mind and says, this is what's happening. This is your life now. And it's that moment I start having that panic, I don't know if you experience like the disassociation, the derealization at all, but that's my cue. Once I feel like there's a layer between me and reality, like everything's kind of just fake. Like if I'm sitting here talking to you on my computer or sitting at my desk, I understand where I am, I see it all, but I have this overwhelming feeling I've never been here before. And I'm just all of a sudden I'm lost. It's kind of like someone in my mind like stepped away from the video game controller and was like, hey, can you grab me a cup of coffee real quick? And comes back and everything changed. Like it's a completely different game.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and ask a question because that's
Yep.
this thread. I don't want to let that go. Do you feel that that separation, that like I've never been here before, do you think that that's, I want to say something wrong with you, meaning to say something you need to fix? Or do you feel like maybe you're actually tapping into more of a truth and that you just need to adjust to?
I've
Maybe we
learned
really
that.
aren't here.
I've That's how I got here. You know, like we talk about our journeys, right? That's how I got to this open-mindedness of what is reality? What is
There
this
you go.
journey? What is all of this stuff? Because I started thinking, I'm like you look up derealization, you can read the dictionary, you can read all of these things, and you're like, okay. I became borderline obsessed with the connection between, we'll call it spirituality and consciousness, to science, physics. And then I found quantum mechanics. I found
Oh yeah.
quantum physics.
Quantum
And
physics.
you start sitting there and you're like, wait a second. All of my answers exist that I have right now. All of these, there's this. I don't know if you're a Nikola Tesla fan, but Nikola Tesla is somebody that it was like the beginning of my journey. And Nikola Tesla kind of took what seemed like magic of communication with things and all of this stuff and connected frequencies, matching frequencies. And he's the one who said everything in this world is energy, frequency, and vibrations.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, there's a trail. That's a treat for me to follow. So to get to the derealization and the step back, I've learned that while I'm incredibly scared at the moment, like this is feeling like the end for me in those moments,
Mhm.
allow myself to feel that right now and kind of
Mhm.
exist in this world. Because I've been here hundreds of times and I've won 100% of the time if we're going to talk about a win rate. So why don't we just sit here and just be scared? Why don't we just kind of view through this lens? And in my coaching, that's what I tell my clients is the anxiety and the panic is coming from one place. It's not from the elevated heart rate. It's not from this feeling of derealization. It's from the feeling of wanting to be anywhere but right here, right now. So what we need to do is accept all of this is happening and just be here now. This sucks. This does not feel good. But you can be nowhere else in your mind or in the world than right here and right now. So let's just be here together.
Those words are actually making me cringe over here because
I
that
know.
is intense. That's very, I want to resist that, right? And part of, for me, part of thwarting that suggestion, if you were my coach, would be, oh no, I don't. I can easily project myself somewhere else. It is the dissociation, but it's at a spiritual level, right? And
Mm,
it's so easy. I meditate so much, and it's so easy to just completely evacuate any of the feelings, any of the tangibilities around me, that you have to be careful, because I spent those COVID years uh, not even here. I mean, I was projecting myself all the time somewhere else, and it was actually some of the happiest years I've ever had. But then again, I wasn't down to earth. I wasn't really connected to the people around me. It was just a kind of a pretend version of me. And so I don't want to do that either. I'm here on earth to be human, to engage with other humans, to have a human life. And of course, perhaps to broaden that, right? I love the first time I heard anyone say we're spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. It was Wayne Dyer. And,
mm.
so I remember him quite fondly and still learn from him and all of his work. But no, I've taken us down another path. And when I was saying that you were saying some things that were making me cringe, right? It's that I feel that when I'm in those moments, that's when I need to realize. You're saying, oh, go ahead and feel the feelings and have the experience. I tell myself, and I did this even before I knew what I was talking about. I just tell myself, oh, this is bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I could say that.
Oh, you
Okay.
drop it. It's perfect. You're good.
Okay. So I would say, this is bullshit. And something snaps inside of me, and I'm done. And I completely shift back into a state of groundedness and neutrality.
Mm,
Quick story. I remember the first time that happened when I was a teenager, through my high school years and just a few years beyond that. I would get terrible migraines, and then I would start throwing up, and I couldn't stop. And so the pounding migraine would make me nauseous, and there I go, and there I go, and there was just no stopping. At first, it would happen like every hour, every half hour, 15 minutes, and then I was almost in like a convulsive type of state. And so I'd have to go to the ER, and they would put me in the migraine room, and they would flood me with fluids, because of course by that point I'm dehydrated, and they give me all kind of Epicac and all sorts of stuff. And this happened maybe once a year, from the time I was like 15 till maybe 22, 23 years old. And the last time that it happened, I always seemed to happen on the weekends when I was home. I don't know why,
mm,
but just always on the week. Maybe that's when my body was more relaxed after the long
mhm.
work week or whatever. And it was okay, let's purge ourselves of whatever crap is going on. Or maybe the stress of the week compounded in my brain and triggered the migraine. In any case, so my girlfriend has to take me to the hospital. She drives me to the hospital from my office, where I've been throwing up into my garbage can. And we get there, and it's a different hospital than where I normally go to, but they're all connected. So they put me in the migraine room, and nobody comes to check on me. 15 minutes pass, a half hour passes, 45 minutes pass, an hour pass. I mean, I feel like I'm going to die, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it is my whole system is in complete turmoil, in complete trauma. And so my girlfriend, Gloria, my coworker, she said, I'm going to go, I got to go find somebody. So she kept going, trying to find somebody. She came back and she said, I'm sorry. She said, they just keep saying they're going to get here when they get here. And Ben, there reached a point when I decided this is bullshit. And I sat up and I thought, absolutely not. I do not want to be here anymore. This situation is complete bullshit. And I said that out loud. My migraine immediately went away. Didn't feel nauseous anymore. I felt a little weak, but certainly, stronger than I had when I was laying on the hospital gurney. And I said, come on, we're leaving. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're sick. And I said, I don't know what just happened, but I don't feel sick anymore. And I walked out of that place. And that is the last time that ever happened, because I realized my body, my mind, my emotions, maybe even my spirit had a little something to do with it. I chose that. I created that situation. And if I could create it, why couldn't I uncreate it? Why couldn't I change it into something else? Right. So I did not want to sit there and feel the sadness that you're talking about, or feel the panic that you're talking about. I was done. I was done with it. So
I love this story because it lines up with, so that moment where you said this is bullshit, right? I call, in my coaching sessions, I call that the competitive brain, where I'm no longer the victim to this anymore. I'm like, I'm wearing the pants now. I'm in charge. And like, that's where, like, because I always say, like, the panic, the anxiety, it feeds off of your fear of this. So because in those moments, right, we think about it, in the moment of having that migraine, you wanted to be anywhere, you just wanted to feel better, you wanted to be out of that out of the hotel, out of the hospital, you wanted to be off the gurney. But in that moment you're like, this is bullshit. You
mhm.
became present. This was the moment where you're like, wait, no, I'm in control. I don't want to be here. I don't have to be here. Wait, I'm like, I have so much more control than this thing is letting me feel I have. And
And
then,
if
so
you
like,
think, yeah, if you think about it, nobody came to help the victim.
and why? To teach you this lesson.
Exactly. It was time that I got past that, and nobody was coming to help the victim. And so I guess I have to stop being a victim now. That was it. And I
And
realized that every time that I was sick, it was because I was feeling victimized by the world. No wonder that was happening. No wonder. That's the other thing I try and do to show self-compassion, is when I find myself being kicked down, or doing something that, I didn't like how that worked out, I say, self-compassion. Well, no wonder that happened. No wonder you went through that, because like you said, what did you learn from this? Or, maybe, yeah, so you did choose A, B, and C, and now no wonder you ended up at D, because those were the paths that you took, right?
and it's probably easy, if anyone listening, or anyone will listen to this, someone being like, okay, well, I feel sad, these traumatic experiences happened to me, like, it's like this, like, that's the mindset, like, I think we're talking about. It's like, traumatic experiences are going to happen, and we can do our best to prevent them, to make sure they don't happen to us, to happen to others. But it comes down, so when we're feeling in a depressed mood, or we're going through clinical depression, anxiety, panic, all of these things, we need to learn that, yes, a part of this is happening to us,
Hmm.
but I always say we need to recognize the role that we are playing in this as well. This is not that you had it coming to you. This is not saying you brought all of this on to you. You have a role, just like a dancing partner has a role in the dance. You have to rely on each other. So when you're dancing with a partner, right, it's time for you to take the lead. It's time for you to be like, okay, I understand this is happening. This has happened, but I am now the leader of this dance. And I always use the analogy. It's like, okay, what set of prescription glasses are you going to wear today? What prescription are you going to look through? Is it going to look through victim, or is it going to look through healer? Is whatever you want to call it. Because when you start observing that version of yourself, that I always say, in service of your best and highest self, what does that best and highest self do in these situations? Because if today it's, we're going to lay in bed and feel these emotions and process these emotions, that is okay, because your intention is to connect with that best and highest self. Because
Hmm.
maybe you do need that rest. But does your best and highest self go down for the count for years? No. That's not who
Hmm.
your best and highest self is. Your best and highest self learns how to work through this, learns how to make the best out of this, learns how to help others through it, understand you've gone through this for a reason. That's my journey. Is I learned that I had to go through the things that I went through to become the best possible me that I'm meant to be at this exact moment in time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And at this moment in time, that's helping others help themselves. Without learning how to help myself, I could never be as good as I am at helping others help themselves.
Oh, and you have to have the tire tracks on your back, right? I mean,
Yep.
you have to get run over a bunch of times before you learn to pick yourself up, and then you can help other people pick themselves up. Um, yeah, there's a funny story. It's from The West Wing. Remember that show from years ago?
I do. Yeah.
And these two guys are talking, and it was Josh and I forget the other guy's name, the president's Secretary of State, and the guy says, "Yeah," he said, "A buddy falls down in a well, and he's can't get up, can't get out, and priest walks by, and he goes, 'Hey, Father, can you help me out? Falling down here, I can't get up.' And priest writes out a prayer for him and throws it down the well and walks on. A little while later, a doctor walks by. He goes, 'Hey, doc, hey, come on, it's me down here in the well. Come on, I can't find any way out. Can you help?' Guy writes him a prescription, throws it down, goes on his way. Finally, a friend of his walks by. 'Hey, George, come on, it's me down here in the well. I've fallen down here. I don't know what to do. I can't get out.' All of a sudden, George jumps down in the well with him. And the guy said, 'What are you doing? Now we're both stuck down here. That was stupid.' And George says, 'Don't worry. I've been down here before and I know the way out.'
It's that.
It's
It's
that.
that's it, and you mentioned it first. I'm no different than you. We are one, right? George knows the way out because he's been down there. I am George, right? Like, and then it's almost probably as simple as, hey, just turn around. There's a ladder behind you.
Yeah, right.
You've just
Or,
been looking where the light is the whole time. Remember, there's stuff around you that you're not seeing.
and it's in the dark. And damn it, anyway, that's very good. That's right. It's in the dark. You just been looking up at what you thought was the exit, but there are little trap doors and little hidden ladders, all in the dark. And yeah, that's thank you for taking the story to the next level because that was no, really, that's an extremely good visual too. That we, unfortunately, I think sometimes the only way out is to go into, that dark night of the soul, and
Mhm.
find that there are exits through that dark place too. Um, yeah, and in doing it alone, which I did for the most part, was terrifying. I think that if I could change one thing about my spiritual growth, about doing the whole awakening process, and I think of it sometimes like a birthing, right? Like I'm being rebirthed, only I came out breech.
Yeah.
And I had the umbilical cord around my neck for quite a while. I
Mm.
really, really wish I had had a twin with me to come out of the world because it was painful.
It very, very painful. And I'm really happy you mentioned that because I lost one of this part of the story. I lost one of my best friends when I was 28 to
Mm.
addiction. And we always had these conversations that we didn't feel like we were going to grow old, right? Weird conversations to have, but like, just one of those, like, I don't see myself just getting old. Like, I don't feel that, right? It's just kind of like, you have a feeling where your life's going and stuff like that. And we had those conversations, just nothing like serious and whatever. It was just kind of like, yeah, we were probably having a couple beers or smoking a joint, doing stuff like that when we were in college. And at the age of 33, I felt like a version of me was no longer here. And now I'm
Mm.
35 and I look back at those conversations and I think to myself, that version of me didn't get to grow old because it blossomed. Like I was a caterpillar blossoming into a butterfly. The caterpillar doesn't know he's becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar just goes to sleep one day and wakes up and has to start breaking out of his cocoon, and all of a sudden he comes out, he's like, what the hell, I can fly. Like, what? Like, okay, let's go.
I was
And that,
crawling before, now I can
yeah,
fly.
I was moving really slow for a really long time. I'm a little bit colder now because I'm not as fuzzy, but and that's what I thought to myself was that version of me didn't grow old. And so we think all of these times our lives are going to go a certain way. We're going to do certain things. We're going to have certain feelings or certain relationships, anything like that. But we never know what's happening behind that curtain of quote unquote reality. Because what we see, what we experience, what we hear, all of it's, I say not to say wrong because it feels very real, but there's so much happening behind that curtain that we can't see or none of our senses can pick up that we just don't know. So that perspective of looking at that and being like, I wasn't wrong, but I didn't think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking of like, where are you going in your life? You may be getting there in a way that you had no idea that you were going to get there.
And for me, what you just described is faith. For me, what you just described, that not knowing what's happening in the other veil, we're not privy to that. Maybe there are some people who can, do the psychic medium and see what's beyond that, but not really. I mean, you don't get to see every cog that's turning back there. You don't get to see every nut and bolt. So can I know that that exists, not know what exactly is going on, but knowing that that unknown is there, and still move forward in my life in a way that is in tune with, right, the higher good? And how do I do that? For me, one of those steps is faith. Having faith that the next step I'm taking is for my good and the greater good of all mankind, humankind. And what's another way? You tell me, what's another way that you kind of keep moving forward, not knowing really what's in store for you?
So I used to think that if you did A, you got B. And then I lived in that box, right? School taught us that. You
Oh
do
yeah.
this, you do that, you go there, right? And I never had, if my mom listens to this, she'll totally understand. I never did things the way I was supposed to. Which I'm really happy of now because I just never felt right in that box. So but the really scary part of it is when you start doing things outside the box, there's no path that's paved for you. So you have to almost develop that intuition. You have to develop that faith because you're the one throwing the dirt on the grass to start creating this path. You're the one laying the road. You're the one doing all the work. And the weird thing is you don't know where the road's going to.
Yeah.
And the ultimate revelation I ever had was that road's going to nowhere.
Ooh. Ooh. Just got
You,
major chills.
right? Like, same. I actually exactly did. The destination is the journey.
What if we never arrive? Oh
There's, what if we never left?
no. Oh, okay.
Like,
Oh,
because what the one thing I've very much come to, like, full circle on is I'll find myself doing the same things that I used to do, but I'm doing them with a different intention. I'm doing them with different lessons learned. It doesn't mean I'm changing what I did, but I'm coming at it from a completely different place. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, you can do the same things, go to the same places.
give me an example.
So let's think helping people, coaching people, right? We'll just use that. I can say these things like that. Ready? Do you know how many times I've said that there is no destination? I wrote a book, and one of the chapters was called "There's No Finish Line." I said it, and I said it, and I kept going through these life things, these life events, and I'm still essentially saying the same thing. But boy, do I feel and act completely different behind that curtain.
Gotcha.
So that's either speaking your reality or creating your reality. But it was almost as if I'm getting chills thinking about this, so I have to say it. I don't know if you've ever had these meditations where you connect with other versions of yourself, right? Um, it's as if we'll call time's not linear, but in this example, we will say it is.
Okay.
It's as if my future self was implanting things to me and that was the pavement that was being laid. Hey, I'm writing this book. I'm on my self-development journey. I'm trying to help other people. Let's write these chapters. It's almost as if the wisdom was there, but that there was a connection, but it wasn't like a visceral connection. It
Mhm,
wasn't like it was like rooted in me. It was like, I feel like this has to be said, and I don't know why.
mhm,
But my mom has told me since I was young, trust your gut, it's never wrong.
mhm.
So, speaking of what the most powerful lesson a parent can give their son or daughter, trust your gut. And and now I look back and I just recently reread that book because I'm going to release it on an audio anyway. And all of a sudden I read that chapter and I was like, completely different from
Yeah,
behind the veil. I was like, it's the same story, but from now two different perspectives from the person who wrote it. And
right.
I'm sitting there, and it was just that weird feeling of like, I always tend to like look up. I'm like, you son
Hello,
of a
you
bitch, and
there?
I just laugh. I just laugh so hard. I'm like, you son of a bitch, and it's that joy we talk about, right? It's that feeling of just kind of like, this is a game. And I know some days and sometimes it doesn't feel like a game, but when those moments happen, like you just have to laugh and be like, that's no coincidence.
Right.
This is something else is in charge that's letting me have fun right now with this crazy illusion that I think is reality.
Well, and I could jump in and say a million things to everything that you just said. First of all, I think that your future self just was giving you a download,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So time isn't linear because I can almost tell you that there are some days when I wake up and I'm like, what version of myself am I today? Because
That's scary.
right, I feel like like there's the version that's kind of that victim, right? Still running in that victim thread because the first label I ever put on was victim label. I was bullied as a little child. I mean, like before school, even in my own backyard. And finally, the next door neighbor kid, would shoot BBs at me. Finally, he ran me over with his bicycle and cut my leg. And my parents had to call the police and file a restraining order. And I remember when the policeman was leaving, he said, "Okay," he said, "here's a copy of the victim's report." And I went, "Ugh," and that was it. I was a victim. And
Hmm.
on and on and on it went. Uh, where was I going with that? Oh, so there's still that victim, right, thread of energy
Mhm.
running there that my life could have taken that course. And then my life could have taken this course, and my life could have taken this course. So it's like there's all these, different versions. And I know many movies have been made about it, sliding doors and I can't think of any off the top of my head, just a Groundhog Day, so
Yes.
all these different versions, you could have stopped here, you could have gone this direction. And sometimes I have to really pull myself in. In fact, can we do a little exercise? Do you think anyone?
I would love to. Yes. And then remind me, I have a question for you after exercise.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just did that this morning because I woke up and I was feeling like, okay, I'm not in this present moment at this present time. There's something else bleeding in. So it's very simple. It's calling back your energy and then giving back the energy that isn't yours. So I do a little warm up, get the energy flowing, do a little Tai Chi pose or move around a bit just to get in sync with the energy. And then I call back all the energy that belongs to Jeannette and Folan. Say your name out loud. Call back all the energy that belongs to Jeannette and Folan, whether that be energy that I have left behind inadvertently, whether I have given it to someone intentionally, whether someone has taken it from me inadvertently, whether someone has taken it from me intentionally, from all the people, the places, the things, the situations where I have left pieces of my energy. Come on back. You belong to me here. You belong to this entity, this physical form. Um, so come on back. And then I feel it. I feel the flow. I feel a little waterfall coming down on me and it makes me laugh and makes me smile. And then I imagine flushing out from my feet down into the earthly toilet all the energy that doesn't belong to me. And so I say, all the energy that I inadvertently picked up, or, you know, pickpocketed from somebody, or someone gave to me, or stuck on me, people, places, things, situations. I am now releasing you back to your rightful place, whoosh, you know, and flush the toilet. And there it goes. And it helps. And then I know if it works because I start laughing.
There it is. That
Yeah.
so that you answered my question. My question was going to be, so how do you get back, or how do you recenter yourself, reground yourself? And I always hear people, because we talk about mediums. I have a couple of friends that do like mediumship work, and they're amazing, and they always talk about calling energy back. And I never thought about it in that sense, because I can relate so much to that feeling of, what version of me am I today? Because I know some days it's anxious Ben, like anxious mind is running the show. And that is incredibly helpful, because it's almost as like as you're tuning in like a radio station with that best version of you, and the other radio stations are starting to get like fuzzy and get out of tune because you're releasing them. And it's funny because like the first thing that made me think, I was like, I released them with love, because you are a version of me. You helped me become who I am. But right now I release that energy. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for all you've helped. But peace out. Like, we're
Peace
good.
out. Right, right.
Oh, that's really powerful. I'm really
And
grateful for you sharing that.
you're very, very welcome. And I appreciate actually being reminded of that, because it was our initial conversation some weeks ago that actually got me digging back into some of my old work, meaning to say the first time I ever bubbled, you know, or doing the visual shield, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
being an HSP, and we talk about the victimization. I think that for highly sensitive people, the tough part is, if I have to shield myself from other people, right? That means I need to be afraid of them.
And you said it first, right? You said you often used to ask yourself, who am I when these people aren't around? And then
Absolutely.
if you're shield, you're almost going back to being like pushing them back out, and now retreating behind that shield.
And we're not saying that HSPs don't need alone time to wring themselves out, right? To hit the reset button, to give back the energy and take back their own energy, to go on the mat, whatever you need to do. That's a part of healthy living. That's a part of self-love and self-care. But I'm talking about being afraid of
Mm.
other people in your life and feeling like you need to bubble or shield yourself from them. And if you feel that way, there's something more going on. There's something else going on that makes you feel like you're going to potentially be a victim of that person.
Mm.
Because I can be around people and be my highly sensitive guard, meaning to say I'm on guard. You know, is my couple neighbors, they're married? Are they getting along? Do I need to somehow set the thermostat up a little bit so we can have a bit more of jovial evening together? Or do I just let them work it out in their own angry way? You know, I mean, like even on a bus riding around, right? You see people getting along and you see people not getting along. And first of all, can I be okay with people not getting along and not taking on that negativity, right? So instead of being like the empty vessel, this is where self-care and self-love come in. Instead of being the empty vessel or the half empty vessel that's now taking in just whatever's in my field, can I fill myself up with all of the you know HSP and energy and holistic methods and tools that I can I fill up on that first, so that when I go out in the world, all I'm doing is giving out that love, right? And spewing that out at people, no matter what kind of a vibration they're in. Go
So
ahead.
I have a question for you then. Because I can feel, as soon as you said like people fighting, people arguing, this and that, as an HSP, right? You almost feel like your heart rate's, your heart's jumping out of your chest. Figuratively, literally, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable because this is panic. Oh my gosh, I'm having like a
Yeah,
giant
I
realization.
feel like I'm suddenly in a frozen room and I have to do this. Like
I
I actually get cold.
Oh my god. So yes, what I just realized, I'm feeling their emotions without the like backstory or with like, so like I'm feeling how they're feeling, but I'm not like as charged as they are. So like it's so displaced. And that's where I think like we're talking about HSPs, it's you're starting to take on other people's feelings, especially like in an elevated moment like that, but you have no context. So all of a sudden there's this, I always talk about anxiety and panic just being the displacement and the miscommunication between the brain and the body, or the mind and the body.
Hmm.
Um, when you're taking on these other people's feelings and you're not walking in their shoes, you're not experiencing what their experience, it's like this rush. And all of a sudden you're zero to wherever they are. And you're like, why the hell am I here? How did I get here?
Right. And so if you don't realize and you're not aware that you're taking on other people's energy, or you don't have a way to test whether the energy is yours or not, you will begin looking around to see in your own life, oh, am I feeling sad today because, oh, you know what? I'll bet my husband's not having a good day. Or, oh, you know what? That discussion I had with my sister last night, yeah, that really brought me down. I guess it hit me harder than I thought. Or, you know what? No wonder I feel sad. My mom isn't feeling well. She's sick and I don't know how long I mean, so you start truly throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if anything sticks, because it must be there. There must be some reason why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And for me, unfortunately, I pick up anger very quickly from other people, and then even long distance. And then I'll wake up really angry and then talk to my sister, and she'll say her and her husband had a huge fight, Leah, the night before. I'm like, oh my God, geez, no wonder, and yet I walk around and take that anger out of my poor husband. Just, hey, as long as we're alive, let me just say, Bob, honey, I'm so sorry. Just to clear that to everybody, that you have had to live with a highly sensitive person.
You just connected so many dots, and not just from conversations, but like books I'm reading and all of those things. So it was ironic in the course at the Nickerson Institute, Dr. Wendy Nickerson actually recommended was it EM Squared by Pam Grout. And that was one of like weirdly the first books I read on my journey. So it was those things that like connect you. I'm like, I'm in I'm in the right place. Like I'm in alignment. I'm on that path. But I just started once she recommended, I was like, I better go back and revisit it and those kind of things.
Mhm.
And you talk about, so I was just reading it today on my run, and I think I'm in like chapter 6 or 7 or something. And they talked about just doing a little bit of an experiment. Like for the next 48 hours, you're going to look for a green car, and you're going to record how many green cars or how many yellow winged butterflies you find. Um, and you're going to find you notice so many of them because you're looking for them.
That's
And
right.
this all circles back to what you just said. When you start matching energies, you're going to find things that match that energy,
Right.
because Freddie, if you want to attract wealth, abundance, love, you have to vibrate at the frequency of health, abundance, and love. If you're operating at a place of anger, guilt, judgment, you're going to find guilt, anger, and judgment, because that's the radio station you are tuned into.
But you didn't even set the dial to that. Somebody else set the dial for you because you were not paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
and you did not slap their hand off of the knob and say, hey, this is my radio, go find your own, right? So you walked into a situation where you were not, and this is where the whole question again becomes, protection or not protection. Are you protecting yourself? Let's not even call it protection, because when you say, I need these protective tools, it makes it sound like somebody's out to get you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Only victims need protection. Really? I mean, the villain never has protection.
You're
Right?
just you're just tying up your shoes to go for a run. You're just putting on that protective wear for your feet to
Exactly.
go do
Or
your day.
I look at it as, hey, a windstorm is coming, i.e., you're going to be going somewhere where there's a lot of people. You want to anchor yourself down, and or you want to maybe put that little, what happens when the snow comes and people put burlap over their most precious foliage in the yard, right? So it's that type of a thing. And then it's just being aware a storm is coming. And if you get wet, you don't say, I must be getting wet because what? I fell in a river? No. you're getting wet, you understand where those feelings are coming from, and you don't start filling in the blanks. So if you are going out there in the world as a highly sensitive person and you are not, seeing what's in front of you, and you're kind of walking around in a blank, right? Then when you start feeling the way you do, and it's a negative feeling or sometimes even a happy feeling, why am I feeling so elated today? Well, then you're going to have all these blanks to fill in. We're asking you to blankety blank the blanks, right? get rid of all of those and just become self-aware. Become self-aware. If I can do one little plug here before we head off, I'm finishing a long project, a book called The 3 Habits of Happy, Highly Sensitive People. And I will tell you that the very first one is self-awareness and other awareness. You have to be aware of everything that's going on around you, and noticing the green cars, because that was what you were I'm looking out for the green cars, and the one that's not going to run over me.
That, and one, I'm so please let me know when you release that book, because I would love to share it with my audience. I would love, because like as we're finishing up here, I want to obviously let people know where they can find you, what you're working on, and anything, because like I said, we like to keep this to an hour. And Jeannette, I would love to have you back on the podcast whenever you would love to come, or be welcome to come back on, because this personally is one of my favorite chats I've ever had. I feel so, the amount of chills I got throughout our conversations, and when it's speaking with you, speaking with Wendy, everybody in this, this field, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and hours, and feels like not a minute goes by, because time doesn't exist when we speak. So I wanted to say that, but I also, with that, want to give you a couple minutes here to say what you got going on, where people can find you, and that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. So you can see my name there on the video. I'm Jeannette Folan. You can reach me, find some of my work at empathdiary.com, EMPATHDIARY.com. And that website, you'll find something. Oh, thank you. You'll find something that the very first work that I ever did when I was processing being HSP empath is I wrote a novel, a teen novel based on kind of my teen self that I was trying to console, right? Trying to process out all that she went through in her highly sensitive teen years. And it's called Diary of a Teenage Empath. And it's a lot of fun. I put in tools. So you'll learn about shielding techniques and bubbles and meditation and self-love. And so all kinds of different tools and exercises are woven throughout the story of Jenny and Nathan, these 2 empaths that hook up in high school. Tons of fun. But what I really want to stress in the time that we have left is, if you are a highly sensitive person, if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling depressed, I invite you to please go find a tribe. Find a tribe of like-spirited people that you can sit and talk to, like I'm sitting here talking to Ben, because in my experience and what I'm going on 10 years now, 10 years of my awakening, and I'm still groggy, still need another cup of coffee, but don't do it alone, and don't think that this is something that you can or should do alone. We're all here to help each other. We're all here to guide each other on the path, or just to give you a blanket to help keep you warm, or to give you some words of encouragement that this is something that you really are meant to do. And it's not all a bed of roses. There's a lot of thorns buried in there, but we'll help you with those too. So, Ben is a coach. I'm a coach. Or there are plenty of therapists out there, of course. You can find them doing a lot of research, though. Pick one that really resonates with you. Go with your gut on that. And then mostly, though, find friends. Find a tribe. Build a tribe. You might find them at the library. You might find them at the gym. You might find them at the yoga center. But don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people and build your tribe. You're not
Absolutely.
alone.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. Finding your tribe, finding people. It's always like they're just quickly as we end it here is um it's like being an antique car. Some people don't want the antique car, don't like the antique car. It's not worth anything. You take it to the right place and they know the worth of that antique car. You are that antique car. When you surround yourself with people that know your worth, know you, um, value you, you're going to get that value, that love, and that acceptance in return. So if you, the way you're feeling, you just remember you're tapping into those negative feelings around you because maybe the environment, the things, and the people around you aren't serving that positive energy you're looking for. Being a highly sensitive person is a superpower. Just like you can tune into that negative energy, you can tune into that positive energy. It's just got to
Mhm.
making that habit of finding that place you are valued, the place that you find you are able to provide value to them, and there's energy exchange there. So I think that's amazing advice. And I know, like you said, you do coaching. Please visit empathdiary.com. I know you do hybrid coaching, you do one-on-one coaching, you do a bunch of different stuff. You can get all your books. So if you are a highly sensitive person and you are looking for somebody like you's recommendation, Jeannette Folan, I 100% recommend, because in our short time together, I've learned so much from you. I feel like there's been just a wonderful connection. And I finally feel like I am being surrounded by people that value, not just me, but the work that we are all doing. So thank you for the role you play in that. I really, really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you too. And I do want to continue this conversation. Really do. I'm going to make another list of all the topics that we can pick up on and just keep weaving the threads together.
I would love that. So, Jeannette, I'm going to let you go because I know you got to get running as well.
Yes.
Everybody who is listening, who is going to listen, thank you so much for holding the space for us. And once again, Jeannette, I really appreciate you and everything you have been able to not just give me, but offer me in terms of energy, knowledge, and time and space. Thank you
You're
very
very
much.
welcome, Ben. And to everybody, know that you are loved. You are
Absolutely.
loved. You are loved.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Somebody Like You podcast. Take it easy.
Bye.